Dear Diary, I was hoping to write in the diary before all the kids started waking up, but here we are. Lincoln's awake and Riker's waking up. So, life is always full of kids, but that's a good thing. I was thinking a lot this week about September 11th, 2001, because this was the anniversary, the 19th anniversary of that event, and we spent some time as a family talking about what happened and remembering where we were. Nathan and I were talking about where we were and what was happening and the things that we were thinking, and it was good to have that conversation and remember and talk about what's happened since that date. We also talked about some people that we've read about or watched movies about who were involved in that day and lost their lives, and the devastation, and I was grateful that we took the time to talk about that as a family, and grateful that at least one of our kids can sort of understand the concept of what happened, but never can truly understand what it meant for our country because he wasn't there. And that's what history is all about too, is we can read about it, but we'll never fully understand the impact of a lot of these historical events because we weren't there, and we don't understand the shift that these things have created and what it was before an event to what it was after. But I think about the after, and we say never forget, and I think it's great that a lot of people talk about September 11th and the terrorist attacks and that sort of thing, but we praised people. We praised our first responders, and we called them heroes after September 11th, 2001. And now we hate them. Some of our police are coming under attack in every way because of a massive amount of hate and misunderstanding and wrongdoings that some police have done for sure. But I go back to September 11th and September 12th and think how much they were regarded as heroes, and they're no longer regarded that way, and how far we've come, not in a good way in that regards, with how we perceive those people that have been put into authority and people who have who are on the front lines, and just sad about we have forgotten. There's a lot that we've forgotten, but there's also a lot that I'm grateful for, and grateful to remember and be able to talk about those things and hopefully learn from those sorts of things. So that was good for our family to discuss some of those events, and then just some other things going on. I feel like this summer has been a long time of accepting that Nathan and I are not morning people. And this has been, we've never been morning people, and we've always struggled to feel like we're not adulting very well because we just don't do mornings and we do nights. And but this summer I hardly ever set an alarm, and Nathan hardly ever did either, and we've really enjoyed that. And it's allowed some real sweet moments with our kids. So our kids are our alarms, and they usually wake up sometime between 7 and 8. And then we have a lot of time where we just snuggle in bed for a while, and then we slowly, Nathan more quickly when he has to work, gets going. But we, as a family, we slowly get going, and we'll snuggle in bed and listen to an audiobook or an audio story, and or talk or be silly or get a few extra minutes of sleep. And it's so sweet. And I think of all these times this summer that I've chosen to just rest in who I am, and I'm not a morning person, and enjoy the rest time with my kids and the slow going and the laying around. And so just today, I was thinking about, man, we've had so many sweet moments because I finally become okay with that. And I've really loved not setting an alarm and really loved not holding myself to the standard of having to be awake before my kids and being ready and always looking good, which I hardly ever have my makeup on anyway. So why do I care? And just feeling like this is who I am, and we get tons done in our marriage and in our personal lives and just spending time with each other, Nathan and I, and we have a whole life once our kids go to bed. And I finally accepted that, and I love it. And I love that we don't have to set alarms very often, and that's just the life that we have. So just realizing how sweet it is that we get those moments and that we are who we were created to be, and we're resting in that. Let's see, what else is going on? Oh, the last thing I will say is I'm worried I'm going bald. I am losing so much hair after having Lincoln. It's so disgusting. There's hair everywhere. The vacuum, I'm not sure it's going to keep up after this one, after this baby. And I think I'm literally going bald, and I do not look good that way. So more hats for me. That's what I'm thinking about lately.
Dear Journal, it's a sober week. It seems like every time an anniversary of September 11th comes around, it's a sobering week. You know, I remember back to when September 11th, 2001 happened. I was a senior in high school, and I went to high school in Olathe, Kansas, and I was in speech class. At the time, it was my first class of the day, and we must not have had a lot going on that day because I don't remember a single thing about what we were learning, but what I do remember is at some point somebody went to the restroom or whatever and came back and they said, man, it looks like a fighter jet hit a building in New York City, was what he said. And, you know, people are like, you know, you're a high school kid, right? You're thinking, well, man, what kind of an idiot drives an airplane into a building, particularly a jet plane? And specifically, the story he had heard was that it was a fighter jet, like a fighter jet that had been flying over New York and hit a building. And of course, at that point, everybody thought it was accidental. And I went from speech class to American history. And almost the moment we walked into American history is when the first tower fell. And I remember, I'll never forget it, my teacher that I had for American history was laying on the floor. He had a TV in his room, and he was laying on the floor on his stomach, and he was watching, he was laying on his stomach, watching on his hands, watching the TV of what was happening, and he didn't move the entire class. He didn't get up. He didn't say good morning, class. He didn't acknowledge that we were there. No, take out your books. No, let's try and talk about this. Nothing. He didn't say a word the entire time we were in that class, and we all just sat there. And, you know, the emotions that were going on, because, of course, between the time I had first talked to that kid in my speech class and the time that I got to my American history class, of course, it had become readily apparent to everyone that we were under attack. And, of course, nobody knew what that meant. Right? My family, but the rest of my immediate family lived in New Zealand at the time. And they were trying to get a hold of me because I have young siblings at the time, and they weren't understanding the difference between New York City and Kansas City, where I lived. And so, you know, you see buildings burning as a 5 or 6 year old, like my little sister was, probably younger, maybe even at that point. And, you know, she's thinking I'm in immediate harm. And so, you know, I'm trying to relive every week of September 11th. I try to relive those emotions as my own way of not forgetting. And so this week, I was going back through the footage on YouTube. And for one thing, every year it gets harder and harder to find videos of what happened on September 11th that don't have an angle. right? And I found that a few years back I started realizing this, like finding collages of the footage that is not interspersed with some insanity of here's how this whole thing is a hoax or you know, some crazy bend to the right or left or whatever. Just footage. I just wanted footage to remember what happened, and I ended up finding one that was it was the story of the morning of September 11th, 2001, interspersed with voicemails that were left by people that were on one of those airplanes. Either the two that went to New York, the one that hit the Pentagon, or the one that crashed in Pennsylvania, Flight 93. And it was real life voicemails that were left to loved ones. And as I'm watching that and just crying my eyes out, you know, the thing that struck me as I thought back on that after watching that video is, you know what you didn't hear in any of those voicemails? Hey honey, I'm on an airplane. It's been hijacked. You know, I was right this morning. You should have taken out the trash. Or, hey honey, I think I'm on a flight that got hijacked. You know, when you went out with your girlfriends last Friday night, I just want you to know that really upset me, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get over that. The thing you heard was people broken down, and they realized the only important thing in this moment is that I make it clear to my loved ones that they know that I love them. And there was no conditionality to that love. There was no, hey, but it also makes me angry when you did this thing. You realize it had all burned away, right? In the moment where they were faced with the end, they had clarity on what matters. And that was the thing I took away from September 11th this year, was I could do better to live my life with a little bit more of that September 11th marriage mentality, where I don't get so hung up on stuff that seems super important to me in the moment or super frustrating to me in the moment, but that I remember what's truly important. In the moment where my life's coming to an end, probably soon, and I only have a very short amount of time to love my wife, to love my kids, what are the things I need to focus on right in that moment? Because while we think our lives last forever, in reality our lives are such a short amount of time. And I want to live that short amount of time with my wife knowing that I recognize what's most important and I'm willing to let all the rest evaporate away. So that there's never any question in her mind, if today's the last day we have together, that she knows I love her and that my actions say that louder than my words. You know, the other thing I've been thinking about just today, I heard a story of a friend of ours who has kids that are a little bit older kids, and they're committed to stewarding their kids God's way. And as a result of that, with their oldest son who's in high school, they're having to pay some consequences as a result of choosing to not be compromising in their parenting. And it just broke my heart as I heard that story. And I know, I mean, look, there's a reason why we don't let high school kids do a lot of adult things, because they're not adults and they make stupid decisions. But as I heard this story shared with me by my wife, my heart broke for him. And yet at the same, it was this weird, like, my heart broke because I can't imagine the pain of that, feeling abandoned, stabbed in the back by your son, you know, where he's going out of his way to not spend time with you at this point, and you know, it's a blended family, so he's choosing to spend time with his mom away from his dad, because with his mom there's not consequences or accountability for actions, and with his dad there is. And it would be so easy for his dad to say, no, I need that relationship. I didn't have a dad growing up, and so can't I just look past these few things to be able to have a relationship with my son? And he's not willing to do that. as a father. And I just want to encourage anyone in that position, as I think about that, and I think about my own position, I think I want to be a man that encourages men in that situation or parents in that situation about what a gift you're giving your children. And while it hurts and it breaks my heart, and I'm sure it breaks his heart, there will come a time, I'm confident, when his son will come back to him and say, I was a real idiot. And I'm really glad that you chose to stand on principle, to not be compromising, and to raise me the way God was calling you to raise me, regardless of how poorly I treated you and wrongfully I treated you. And I hope any parents that are dealing with that situation, including perhaps Andrea and I down the road as our kids get older and make decisions, that we have the strength he has to continue in the face of pain, to continue in the face of opposition, to steward my kids in a God-honoring fashion regardless of the consequence. That's inspiration. And that's the thing I'm thinking about today.